The first half was kind of high level, big ideas stuff. The second half is more tactical, how do we actually do it, and a little bit more discussion-y type stuff. To kind of frame all that, we're going to start back again at the high level and then go strategic and tactical, kind of boots on the ground. I was talking a second ago, right before the end, about Ames's strategy for how we're approaching this stuff, and I don't know if this is the right strategy, but this is where we're going, and we'll adjust as we move. We see fully on ground classes like we normally have, brick and mortar classes, is still totally existing inside of our program. We see hybrid and inverted or flipped or whatever word you want to use there as what Christensen would call sustaining innovation, so taking new technology and globbing it on to the existing solution. So Christensen's example of this is television and how it has moved from just normal old cathode ray tubes to HD TVs. The same factories and distribution models and that sort of thing existed for that, and so it still keeps on going. It's just sustaining the way that is created and done. And so we see in our stuff hybrid and inverted as being a sustaining way of deploying technology. And I'll talk more about what that looks like for real in a second. And then fully online as being a disrupting thing. So Jason started off with that, or not didn't start off, but he talked about the quality matters stuff. What we did is the quality matters stuff is great, but it's still very hey, big idea. What we wanted is something that's really, okay, what does that really mean? What does that really look like in real life today? And so for us, one of our faculty members named Jim Porter put together this, which is Ames's guidelines for online courses.
This is on your website.
I don't know if this is on our website, but I'm going to put it on Nika, so you all can get a copy of it. But you can see that what Jim has done is he's taken some of those best practices that are out there and gotten super tactical as to what that looks like. So have XYZ thing on your syllabus. A weekly course might look like ABC, that sort of thing. Do you want to add something? Do you want me to go into detail, Glenn?
Just show a couple other pieces to it, because I think there's a lot of questions about sort of real nuts and boltsy stuff, and that's what this document was designed to do for all of our faculty. You could hand this to someone, and it almost provides like a boilerplate for what you should do. And in fact, literally, we've built or are building a boilerplate online course that someone can then take that already has a lot of these things built into it, because there's sort of commonalities across all of our online curriculum. Yeah.
Do we have, I guess I'm following up with your boilerplate. I'd like to put into my first module kind of a prologue that says how to learn online. Do we have anything like that?
Yeah, we have that.
And maybe, can you just hit some of the headings on the
Yeah, sure. I'll just walk you through it. Thanks. So this one is kind of helps. This is just help students understand where we're going with the class. What are the objectives? How is the course going to? What are expectations? How should work be submitted, and that sort of thing. This would be in a syllabus where we've also created what we call a week 0 for a course that could be commonly deployed across all of our online classes. So there will be, this is how you use XYZ learning platform that we're using, which might be Nika or it might be something else. This is, hey, students that take classes that are totally online struggle with ABC things like time management. Are you sure that this is what you should be taking? Blah, blah, blah. As well as a little brief quiz. It's basically like a self-evaluation. Are you ready to do this thing online? That sort of thing. There are a ton of support services internally at Miami, but they're really disparate, and they don't all talk to each other, and students don't all know that they're there. And so having just like a little summary of where they can get services and that sort of thing, so they can just blocked into the course is one of our principles.
And one of the challenges with online is that you don't want to be tech support for your students, and
Yeah.
you quickly get sucked into that. So having this type of thing, say, this is where you go for this problem, this is where you go for that.
Video not playing, go here and talk to these people, that sort of thing. Accessibility is a big deal. Miami actually has video captioning accessibility guidelines and resources that are available to help you make all that happen. And so there's some stuff around that we have around that.
Just as an interesting aside, this is a huge issue. For those of you who are moving to the new Miami website that's coming out, the policy now of Miami is that if you put up a video on your website, it has to be accessibility ADA compliant. So you cannot put up YouTube videos that are not ADA compliant. That means having the closed captions and other sort of ADA. And literally, Miami will not let you put up a video on its website now without that. So you need to be thinking as you create a video about this accessibility issue. I actually think in terms of online learning, this is going to be a big hurdle for us.
It is overcomeable, if that's a word.
It is now.
Yes. Like, so for instance, when I was at Cengage, we found a whole slew of this whole cottage industry that is around providing closed captioning for video, and it's relatively cheap. And you can imagine it's used for everything from sitcoms all the way to your local news and that sort of thing. And so those things exist, and these people can help you
I'm
connect.
sorry, keep interrupting here. One of the cool things, though, that about all these problems is that these third-party people pop up to solve these problems. If you look around, they're all there. Like there's one I just recently forwarded to Artie about this company that now provides the verification about someone doesn't cheat on tests for online learning. And they're just like this third-party company that has, they do like credit report type things on your student, and then it asks them a test question like, did you live at this address in this year? Or choose, these kinds of things have popped up to try to solve these problems. And so I think that's why these things become overcomeable because of that.
You can use that as long as you TM and copyright it me. So every time you say it, say as created by Artie. Security and privacy, design and navigation. We're building our own internal, what we call the AIMS dashboard, our own internal platform for running courses online that embrace some of these design and navigation principles. But this is also doable with inside of NICA if you know where all the right buttons are, which we'll get to over the course of the next couple of days. Lots of interaction among students, a lot of strong instructor presence. I'll tell you from my own example, I just ran a fully online class this last semester, and it was a real experiment, and in some ways it was successful, in some ways it's a complete and utter abject failure. The ways that it was a failure was that I met one-on-one with all of my students about 30 minutes a week on Google Hangout and things like that, which was awesome. I had a high level of instructor presence to these individual students. But the forums and discussion boards, I intended to be mostly like peer feedback collaboration spaces, and so I wasn't that present in the forums. And so when debriefing with students, they felt like they had individual connection with me very, very much, but they didn't feel like I had that much presence in the course discussions. Does that make sense? So in the future, like how I'll run that class is I'll dramatically scale back the amount of time that I'm meeting one-on-one with students, because you imagine 30 minutes a student is not sustainable. That was really painful. It kind of sucked. And instead be more present in the discussion stuff, as well as be available for online office hours and that sort of thing. Does that make sense?
How many students were there on online class?
And that class is an 18-student class. So it's smaller, but it was still painful.
Yeah, then you can monitor the discussion forum, but it's a huge number.
Right. Oh, yeah. I mean, if we're talking MOOCs, then that's a different story. But if we're talking 25, which is the average, then that's doable. And then last is what we call the kind of the press release valve, the exception clause. So if you want to do something that is not inside of these guidelines, you're allowed to. You just need to be able to justify it. You need to talk to, clear it, that sort of thing inside of those. So that's kind of the high level. Again, I'll post those on Nico. We tried in our stuff to take a kind of whatever it takes principle back to this like 3D folding out thing, that we try to use a whole bunch of different resources combined in multiple ways. And the nice part is that as we get into this, you'll see that the resources and tools that we're using are not rocket surgery. Like they're all really pretty simple tools and individual components. It's not, this, where it's, whoops. It's not this, right, where it's like this really complex bank of buttons that a super nerd has to press. It's relatively easy tools. That animation failed me. Okay, so what might like a fully online class look like? We have our hybrid classes that I'll talk about in a second what those look like, but our fully online, we basically time boxed everything. That's kind of a concern, is that you don't want to not have students doing a lot of stuff and spending 6 to 9 hours a week doing stuff online, and you also don't want to overkill and give them too much. And so we tried to time box kind of as, this is just an example, but as kind of a workflow for a week. And we did stick with the week model. So we like the asynchronous in that you can do this stuff during the week anytime you want, but we're all going through it at the same time, week by week by week. Does that make sense? And then we're also, to kind of hold students to that, we kind of deployed each week. You couldn't work ahead because it simply wasn't posted. Does that make sense? I'm not sure if I'm sold on that, but that's kind of the approach we took. Yeah?
Will you provide all of these handouts or whatever you want to call them over here?
Yeah, you mean this?
Is everything
Yeah, I'll be posting this up on
Marty,
YouTube.
repeat the question.
What's that?
Repeat the question.
Oh, sorry. Is this going to be available someplace? And yeah, I'm going to put this up on.
Let me ask a further question. Why aren't the presentations out there now so we can look at it?
Because I didn't think to do that. So what these things could be is, for these, it's about MU authored introduction, so videos, text, that sort of stuff. And then primary readings and links to, read these articles or check out this asset at the library or that sort of thing. Forum discussions, and then response. So like for how I did my online class is, at the start of the week was on Wednesdays. Students had to post an initial post by Saturday, and then by the following Tuesday they had to respond to at least 3 of the other students' discussion posts. Does that make sense? Yeah.
So in other words, the completion date of, let's say, the writing response is uniform.
Yes.
They can do it whenever they want,
Yes.
but everybody has to hand it in at the same time.
Yes. Yes. So you can work at 2 a.m. on a Saturday for something that's due.
But it's due at 5 p.m. that night.
Yes.
Everybody else.
Yes. That's how we did it. Somebody else might experiment and come up with something better, but that's how we did it. Yeah, and then there's projects, something that's due each week to hold you accountable. One of the things that I learned when I was at Apple is that students, and I'm sure you all know this from real experience, I just learned it from watching people, but that students do jack squat unless it's assigned. If it's not graded, it ain't going to get done. And so simply having a thing that says, watch this video and read this thing, isn't necessarily going to hold their feet to the fire. So we have an exercise, papers, presentations, all that kind of stuff had to be done every week. There was a thing. So in Nika, it was really a pain, to be honest with you. My grade book is like a billion things, The good news is that, 80% of those billion things is like me looking at it, yes, me looking at it, yes, me looking at it, yeah. It's pretty easy to grade, but it's very holding feet to the fire. If I was in a different discipline that could do this, I would have done it auto-graded quizzes and things like that. But the kind of courses that I'm teaching don't lend themselves to that. And then online office hours throughout the week. So I have my normal office hours, and then I also had time set aside that I kind of considered when the class would normally, in quotes, be happening. And that time just meant that I was, at the beginning of the semester, on Skype, and then I switched over to Google Hangouts. We're now Google School. Just sitting on Google Hangout waiting for students to pop in and that sort of thing. And could also, students could schedule time with me as well. For our hybrid courses, so Miami defines hybrid courses as greater than 50% of the normal on-ground time is replaced online. And so what we do is we just say, hey, the class normally meets 2 days a week. Now it's really going to meet 1. And instead that 1 is replaced with an equal amount of material online. What did this look like for students? Students, for now, we're looking exclusively into Nika. Nika became where all this stuff lived. Now that we have Google, have any of you used Google Plus Hangouts? It's pretty wonderful. It's pretty wonderful. It basically is like, Skype or one of those, but you can do screen sharing. You can do collaborative document work, all that kind of stuff, and it all works with just your normal old MU login because we now have Google integration, all that kind of stuff. In my class, I don't use this, but in other Ames classes, we use Google Docs or collaborative authoring, so students can author and comment on each other's papers and work and things like that on inside of Google, which is really, if you've never, have any of you used Google Docs? All great, okay, it's awesome. And then one thing that I like to use is Twitter's water cooler. So for me, I feel like Twitter's kind of the director commentary version of the class. So I'll put up articles and things like that that are contemporary, that are happening during the week that come out, but aren't necessarily like you have to read this or watch this or what have you to understand the class. It's just kind of augmenting it. Yeah.
So, I mean, many of us already do that, but we use email. I mean, why wouldn't you use email to get in touch with the students as opposed to Twitter? I mean, is it really necessary to have that like immediacy that Twitter allows you?
I think that if you look at usage of email among our student population, they're not checking it as often as they're on the Twitter and things like that, right? So email. How many of you have sent an email and you kind of realize that students haven't checked their email in 2 days, right? Which to me is I don't even know how you'd function in that world, but they do. Whereas Twitter is they're waiting in line. I'd much rather than read something about my class than watch the cat shark chase a duck, which is a video that Glenn showed me yesterday.
Awesome video.
It is. It's a cat. It's a cat in a shark costume on a Roomba chasing a duck. It's pretty wonderful.
But I'd also say that another difference between Twitter, we'll talk about Twitter a little tomorrow, is that Twitter is a public space. So where emails might be a one-to-one conversation you're having with a student, Twitter and sort of retweets and using a hashtag is a public conversation that all of the students can participate in. And so email may be appropriate for a one-to-one conversation you want to have with your students, but if what you're trying to get is more of a group and collaborative thing, yes, you could do a reply all. We all know how much we love reply all emails, but Twitter is more of an opt-in public conversation.
Yeah, and there's
Just a side note, just to let people know that after this afternoon session with Ibrahim, Katie, and company, we have some time, and we'll be happy to set those up, and you can just sort of play with them and see, set up some groups and interact. And if you haven't done that, just to get a sense of what that looks like, what it feels like, and things. So we do have space, and if you remember on Wednesday, we've got the afternoon set aside, so we'll be happy to actually simulate the entire experience.
Yeah, there's some really cool stuff that folks are experimenting with. So let's have a group discussion all tonight at 7:30 using this hashtag on Twitter and just follow that hashtag. Or for instance, I had a bunch of students that their last project was a group collaborative project, and they all used a hashtag as they were constructing a data, a physical data visualization, and they put up pictures of them, out at the Ace Hardware store, cutting things and buying stuff, and then they, had, that kind of stuff. It wasn't at all required, but students, it just kind of sprung up and emerged as a really fun way for students to kind of feel like they're all part of something. And I responded with some snide comments and things like that. It's just fun. Yeah.
Yeah, but aren't you limited by the number of characters that you can use in Twitter?
Yeah, I'm not smart enough to really say more than 140 characters. I think so. Yeah, totally. You're limited, but that's part of the fun, right? It's not replacing any of that stuff. It's another tool in our toolbox.
Right tool for the right job. I mean,
Yep.
that's kind of that's the refrain of this. When there's things that make sense to be more than 140 characters, don't use Twitter.
So for me, for instructor tools, some stuff that I use, we're going to talk about, I'm going to show you a couple of my classes, and then Jason's going to get into an initiative at FSB. I'm on the low end of the continuum. He's on the high end of the continuum. My being low, cheap, fast. His being high production high production value, refined, all that kind of stuff. So on the low, cheap end, I did all this stuff just using equipment that costs less than probably about $15 total in my office. All right. So some of those tools include screen recording software. Here's a couple of them, the Mac ones. I don't know any of the PC side, but I'm sure there are plenty that are good. And these just record you doing things and your voice.
We will talk about these tomorrow.
Yeah. And then I also use this nice little tool on my iPad here that, so I have a stylus, and what it lets me do is record myself saying, okay, how the web works is that you have clients on this side, and they connect to to an ISP that looks things up in the nerd speak, right? That kind of stuff. Kind of a whiteboard.
That's on your iPad?
Yep. And then,
So that's like, you could do that on your screen as you're discussing to your class. So-
yeah, you can actually use it in a whole bunch of different ways. So let me show you. The first way is instead of a whiteboard. So as I'm talking about something, instead of having these really polished PowerPoint stuff that's just not my style, instead I can have this kind of thing, and then it creates a video that I can export to Vimeo or YouTube or whatever. It just plays back that. Clients on this side, and they connect to to an ISP that looks things up in the nerd speak, that kind of stuff. All right, so that's that, and I can then save this out of this program. This is called Doodlecast. I can save this out on my little iPad, and all the iPads that we have here, if you want to play with it, are loaded up with this software if you want to play with it. I can record myself doing this in multiple colors and all that kind of stuff, and then I can drop it over into, and this costs what, $2?
$2.99.
$2.99. Oh, big spender. $2.99. $3. All right, it costs $3, and then I can drop this into iMovie on my iPad to trim it up and then all that kind of stuff, and then I can submit it to YouTube or Vimeo or one of those services out there. Done. It never even touches my desktop computer. It's all that kind of operating that way. All right, and it's this easy. It's really simple. Yeah.
Would it touch your desktop?
Yeah, sure. If I wanted to sync it back,
Right.
I totally can. But again, I'm looking for what can I do quickly, iteratively, that kind of stuff. So that's one piece of software. Another way you can use it. Yeah. Sorry.
Do you know of PC applications like this for Windows 8 or something like that? Or?
No, sorry. I'm so
Anybody
inside
know
of
anything
it.
like that?
Apple.
Or Windows 8?
I have totally drank the Kool-Aid. So
Fine.
it also lets you do things like drop in images into the background so you can draw on top of stuff. So if you want to provide students with, I'm a designer, so if I want to be able to provide students with feedback on their designs, as you know, if I were to write in a forum post text about feedback on their designs, to go like this, to kind of point at something, takes like a paragraph of text, right? If you can see in this place, move it 3 inches. That's instead I can just draw right on there and hit submit.
How are you interfacing your iPad to the teacher station?
I'm sorry?
How are you interfacing?
Oh, this is just a little device that Apple sells that just connects it to a normal VGA
Oh, so it's done.
port. It's a little dongle. I can also, we have up here, we're not using it because it's a little, I didn't trust it, but you can also actually screen mirror to an Apple TV, so you can just plug one of these into a projector if you want to, but I don't trust
Could
it.
you tell me again what that app is and what that thingy is called?
Yeah, so this is an iPad to VGA dongle. That's what this
Okay,
white
wait,
thing
wait.
is.
What's that last name?
iPad 2, like iPad TO, VGA dongle, VGA. That's just the name of the little thingy that plugs into the
Oh, does the
projector.
iPad have a different download than the regular?
Yes.
Yeah.
$29.
Okay, $29 at the bookstore. You're going to keep track of how expensive it is to run my class, all right? All right? And then the software, is Doodlecast. There's 2 different versions of Doodlecast. I originally was using the first one that came out, which was designed for children, which is kind of accurate for me. And it it looks like kiddie software, but its output is the same basic thing. And then they released this Doodlecast Pro that lets you drop in images and draw on top of images and stuff like that.
The Doodlecast Pro is just for iPad, right?
Do they have an Android?
They have an Android, but
Well,
not Windows 8.
You can't do it with the iPhone.
No. And I don't think I'd want to on this little,
Okay.
Oh, may I ask, sorry, can I ask another example?
Yeah, please.
Which sounds so rude. I connect to my iPad, but in Pagaki, for some reason, they gave us all Dells in the classroom. Will the iPad to VGA dongle work from my iPad to a Dell?
I don't even use the instructor workstation. I just plug straight into the thing, straight into the, where you plug your laptop in, is what it plugs into.
Oh, to the
cable.
so
Yeah, it doesn't even touch the.
iPad,
Yep.
yeah,
Okay,
Well, I
Skip
guess
all that.
The general question though, can you plug it into a PC?
No.
I mean, an iPad, you can sync an iPad into your PC.
Okay.
So if you make a video and you want to drop it into a PC and edit in Premiere or something like that, it's just syncs. It's just like a video that you film with your iPad or a picture that you take with your iPad. It just saves to the camera roll.
Really, two questions. When you take that dongle and plug a notebook into it, let's show the notebook on the teacher station, and I think the answer is no to that.
Well, I'm interested in the iPad PC connection. That's
Yeah, you can sync it just like you sync it through
Anything,
iTunes.
It just plugs in, yeah.
Yeah.
You boot up iTunes and whatever files are on the iPad show up on your iTunes on the PC.
So what does that actually look like in a classroom environment? So this is from my fully online class that I just ran. Using Jim's guidelines, started off with week 1 with like, hi, I'm Artie. And honestly, I went into more personal information than I normally do in the welcome to the class. You know, I kind of talk about my family and stuff like that because I wanted students to feel more connected. I wanted to overemphasize the personal connection with students because I just felt that that was really, really important and that it would be easy for them to lose that. And then all those videos, I would make those videos on the Doodlecast. Here's an example of one of them. Hi, welcome to. So this is welcome to the class, blah blah blah. Same thing, whiteboard, that kind of stuff. You can see it's really rough, but I'm okay with it being really rough. If you listen to me talk, I really hadn't figured out how to talk about anything yet. But that was, the first one. And then I also did screen recording. So you can use the screen recording stuff, which if you have a Mac, actually QuickTime just ships with this built in. If you go into QuickTime and go to new screen recording, you can just record your screen and your audio automatically. There's other software out there that's really great that also will capture the little camera that's built into your Mac at the same time. And you can toggle between you talking, like a talking head, and what you have on screen. And it just records your screen. And it's really a dumb tool that just records your screen, but it can be used in a million different ways. So this is a programming class, and so, I'm talking about how to program blah, 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 blah. And so it's a recording of me writing code and stuff like that. But it can also be used to, record you doing a PowerPoint presentation or anything like that. And, yeah.
Again, I have a lot of questions about the temporality. So you're presenting this information, but not everybody's online, right?
That's right, yeah. So it's all pre-recorded.
And they can watch it anytime.
Yeah, in fact, if I look at the usage data of these videos that I put up, students on average watch them 1.8 times. So students actually rewatch videos, which if you can imagine, that can't happen in a normal lecture, right? That only happens once. Now, I don't know if one kid watched it 4 times and one kid watched it 0, right? But that's what I got. Yeah.
Earlier when you were talking about assessment, you were saying things like you have to know they've read the material, so you have to quiz them on it or whatever. But some of those usability analytics, knowing that they've actually opened it and how long if they've completed the viewing.
Yeah, you could totally track that. I felt that for me, that was a little bit more big brothery than I wanted to go, especially because some of those videos, some of those tracking services have problems. Like let's say some kid watches the whole video and then at the end I'm blabbing on about what we're doing next week and they hit stop and they don't want to watch the last 10 seconds. That might not get recorded as done. And I feel like that I wasn't super comfortable with that. And also the material that I'm teaching, is if you're a computer science student, you might scrub through this because you know it already pretty well. And so then I'm okay with that, as long as at the end you can do it. Okay. So yeah, and then once students get into this stuff, just picking some random weeks here in Nika, week 8, there's this little text-based introduction, write some journal, watch some development videos, that kind of stuff, document their process, links out to different places on the web that go into more detail of the kinds of things I'm talking about. This might be other lectures, it might be articles, that sort of thing. I know that the library doesn't like us to do this, but I actually pointed them to the online books and that sort of thing. So this class actually didn't have any required textbook. It was all just basically like read this random chapter from this random book, read this chapter from this random book, and that sort of thing. And so that's kind of how I did it. And like I said, I've had mixed results. The fully online class, I need to be more involved in the forums moving forward and some things like that. My hybrid class that I taught a year ago, the first time, it went awesome. Basically, by week 8, we had covered all the material that students normally cover in the entire semester. And so the rest of the semester was just spent iterating and getting better at that material. And basically, it was great. It made it so that when we were on ground, there was no wasted moments. When we were all in class together, everybody knew exactly what they were supposed to be doing. Their questions were super pertinent. Discussions were super related. There was none of that death spiral where you got to like spend the first 30 minutes of class talking about what they were supposed to have read already, right? There was none of that kind of garbage. It was all super relevant right when we hit the ground, ready to roll, and we were able to go really, really fast. And I'm actually going to try to scale it this next semester where instead of having, it's normally capped at 20 to 25 students. This next semester I'm going to run 2 different sections on 2 different days of the week where one, they all watch the videos and then on ground they're watching, we're doing stuff, in person in 20 student sections. And in the future, I hope to scale it even greater with like TAs and things like that. To just kind of use it. Yeah.
How do you work that out with your department in terms of teaching local stuff?
Glenn and I are buddies, so it counts as a normal load for me. Even those 2 sections, it's counted as 1 class. But I'm going to be working on it over the summer a little bit, so I got a little bit of resources to pre-record some of those lectures. Some of the stuff that I did last time when I did it, I got to reuse some of those videos, so that kind of helps me there, that sort of thing. Yeah.
Why do you think that it went so much better?
The hybrid one?
Yeah.
I think that these are, so the fully online is a 400 level class, and the hybrid one's a 200 level class. And I think that the online one has the dynamics of students needing some kind of, undergraduate students needing on average some more structure. You're going to be on ground. I also think, honestly, the way that I structure my online one would just suck the life out of me when it comes to time commitment. As you can imagine, 30 minutes with 18 students every week was really, plus I'm recording lectures and all that kind of stuff. It just was not, it was painful, right? And so it went bad for me. And then also for students, I think, like I said, I think if I had to all do it over again, I would spend 10 minutes per student a week and 20 minutes per, and use that remaining time to comment and discussion
I guess
boards.
my real question is, why were they so prepared?
Oh, I think that the hybrid thing just fits better with their normal rhythm of what they're used to having in a class, right? Because they're still meeting once a week, and they're used to meeting once a week. And I think that was helpful. It's not apples to apples. It's not the same class, right? It's different material and stuff like that, but that's not that one. Any other questions related to my global experiments? Okay. And as you can see, I think this level of craft is entirely doable by everybody in the room. Like, it's really not that hard. And it was helpful that I have Glenn, who's my boss, who is supportive of this sort of thing, is supportive of this kind of experimentation. But any of you that have tenure can't get fired, so you might as well experiment like crazy, right? Yeah, Vimeo is what I use instead of YouTube, and it's the only. It's the same feature set. It's just design nerdery choices. I just like how Vimeo looks and feels better than I like YouTube. No, it's a certain online service. It's free up to a certain point, and then if you want to upload more than X number of videos per week, you have to pay. So it's similar to YouTube. It's just prettier and has a lot less noise. It does not support closed captioning. Last time I checked, they say they were rolling that out in the next couple of weeks. I thankfully didn't have any students that needed it. Otherwise, I would have used YouTube, which does support closed captioning. The other benefit to Vimeo is that you have 3 options for deploying a video. Totally open, anybody can see it. Quasi-secure in that it's not listed anywhere in search results and stuff like that, but anybody with the URL can get access to the video. And then also, like, more secured, you have to be approved to be able to see the video. If you're concerned about locking in your IP and that sort of thing, it's nice to have those options. I believe YouTube has similar options. I personally just put all my stuff open because I didn't want to hassle around with it. Which really yielded some interesting results. I got a couple comments from people on the videos that weren't from the class, which I thought was actually which was fun. So, yeah.
Yeah, I just want to add that this is a conversation we'll talk a little more about maybe today, but definitely tomorrow, about sort of the Google suite of tools. There definitely is certain synchronicity kind of advantages to using Google tools. So because we have Google Apps here at Miami, you don't have limits in the amount of data pretty much you can upload. You can create channels on YouTube and do some other things that may make YouTube a better option. I agree. I think Vimeo, but YouTube's just ugly, you know, and it's
I know, it was just
crowded,
total.
But
It was just total.
Vimeo is a very elegant solution, but it may make. I would, if you were indifferent between the two, I would nudge you towards YouTube only because it'll sync better with Google Drive and Docs, and it's just nice to kind of keep things in one ecosystem, and you might as well use what we've adopted here.
I'd also say I did use YouTube in one way that I think is pretty interesting. I don't think a lot of people know about. If you're running a Google Hangout, like office hours and that kind of stuff, you can actually record the Google Hangout to a YouTube video. And what I liked about that is that oftentimes I would explain some concepts to some students, and you've probably had this before. You think they're totally with you, and then they go home and they email you and they ask you the same, and you're like, "Are you serious? I just said that." You know, like, how are you not getting that? What was nice is that with this, by recording that, I could just point them back to the YouTube video and say, "Rewatch this, what we just said," and it was there, which I liked.
But every student has to have the equipment, right?
No, I mean, no. For Google Hangout, they could watch me and that sort of thing. If they have a Mac, and I believe this is true for most newer PCs, they ship with a camera built in, and that's all you need. They have on Jason's laptop, you can't see it, but there's, behind this glass right here is a little camera, and a little green light turns on when it's recording. On iPhones and Android devices and all those kinds of things, they all have cameras built in, and they all have Google Apps and that kind of stuff, so they can work that. In fact, I did a couple of my Google Hangouts while down in Cincinnati meeting with potential clients for some of our classes. I would jump into a coffee shop, fire up the Google app, and do my office hours in the coffee shop off my iPad, and just using the camera there. And students didn't know any difference between it. It's just really nice. And
yeah, and I'll just add, even if you're on a PC, if you don't have a screen cam, there are lots of options that you can add on, so you can extend that capability, whether you're on a Mac, you're on a PC.
But watching a video, anybody can do that,
Yeah, I just have a concern. I mean, how about if you have students on the regional campuses? Many of them cannot afford all this equipment. Do we have anything in this university that allows them to borrow? Yeah.
The library has 40 iPads for 24-hour checkout.
Now, what about on the regional
The
campuses?
regionals, I don't know about their equipment checkout. So yes, King, we've purchased a lot of, they do have maybe some iPads. I can check on that and see. Each library might have some components for checkout, but we really do have a plethora of resources here between tripods, digital cameras, MP3 recorders, iPads, laptops, Macs, PCs, the whole gamut. We actually even have a PA system, microphones.
Regional people can check all that out, and we also have stuff that they can use, but that's not an issue these days, I don't think. I don't think cost is a problem with the technology. And maybe 5 or 10 years ago, all that stuff was a problem, but we're running all kinds. We're running a lot of online stuff.
You can get a Google Chromebook for $250 that will play. That is a computer. It's a laptop computer for $250 that will play everything that everyone's talking about up here. That a person can participate in an online class for $250 for a computer.
And my phone does all the, you could conceivably consume all these resources just on my phone, which is great. It's crazy, but yeah, that's all I got. So on the other side, the other end of the spectrum, from $299 to Dualcast Pro, the FSV initiative. So,
Can I just respond just for a second to Mary Jane's comment? There are a number of folks here on campus that in the event we've had situations, and we have had situations like that. For example, in the School of Ed, we have tech people who have laptops that just are obsolete in one respect in terms of the ways in which they recycle things, but they sit down there, they have no use. So if people needed one for a semester, for an extended period of time because they didn't have access to those things, it's not, and I think that point earlier, it's not widespread where, whoever. So in the event you find those things, if you can contact people from the library, your IT people, I've never encountered an experience with that in terms of having access to things that we haven't been able to solve. We've even loaned things to people for extended periods of time, and it's worked okay. And I think mostly because of smartphones, that almost all folks have them. Almost everything we have, they can usually get at. And many of them, unlike me, I don't enjoy watching things on this as much as students seem to. So.
Okay. Thanks, Peter.
Is
So,
it louder?
well, do we need to turn up? Oh, I think that's good. I think we have volume now. Yeah, yeah. So I had the opportunity to start working with Farmer School of Business last fall, and we had an opportunity to do things a little bit differently. So organizing things more at the divisional level. So we had divisional level coordination through the dean's office, working with Dr. Tom Spey, who is acting as an e-learning director, sort of the program manager driving this project forward. We initially explored SBI, but because of the scope and because of the complexity, we kind of backed away from that. And we settled with doing 2 pilot courses for the summer, starting with Management 111 with Byron Finch, and also Entrepreneurship 201 with Mark Locker. 2 of the things that we're looking at, focusing again on divisional coordination, is let me actually skip this slide. Focusing on curriculum strategy, how we're going to be building the courses, executing the courses, creating a platform that is sustainable for Farmer and potentially for other divisions within the university. So we're looking at things like a course template, something that had a professional appearance, something that we could brand, something that met those online quality standards that we talked about with Quality Matters, and had some student validation. So we're doing the pilot, we're going to get feedback, and we're going to change it based on that feedback. And also something that's flexible. We wanted to create, we're looking at creating the architecture. So we're creating the room, we're creating the desk, we're creating the doorway so students know where to go and how to process that information. But we want to create something that's flexible so that you can include your own content, your own methodology, and make it sustainable within our current standard elements. So this is deployed completely just within NECA. Another thing we wanted to emphasize was content modularity. I've got a big part of my background as an industry where one of the key values of e-learning is having that modularity, having the ability to take content, create reusable learning objects, use them other places. And we've seen that with the inverted classroom and flipped content. You can take content from TED, you can take content from Coursera, you can take content from your neighbor in the division down the hall that's video and share that in your course. So looking to leverage that. Farmer already has sort of a number of online assets in terms of the flipped content, and we're looking to develop more. So as guest speakers come in, we shot video of them. So these are all videos that are going to be available downstream for faculty to start to use and start to include in their courses. So again, the idea here is laying an infrastructure to build upon. And part of that modularity allows us to do some interesting things in terms of reuse and remix. It's not just content, it's the entire modules within the course. A great example, I know there's some faculty here from gerontology in that entrepreneurship component to the gerontology course. We're already developing that. That's an element of ESP 201, working with Mark Locker. Those modules are going to be available to be online that could be integrated into those gerontology courses. So it's not just within the division, but it's interdivisional potentially. So creates a lot of interesting opportunities. So this is just kind of going to give you kind of a quick overview of the course. Again, this is all in NECA. So in terms of the NECA, what we're using, these are tools that are available to you right now. This is Lesson Builder, but it has some additional embellishment. So we're using some cascading style sheets. We're using some visual design elements and sort of enhancing what's available. So I just kind of want to focus us on the top part of the page here. So we've got the banner, which is including the farmer's branding. We're including a detailed course description. But we're also embedding a video of the instructor talking about the course, creating that engagement with the student, allowing the student to have a sense of presence with that instructor, an instructor that in a true online environment they might never meet. So in this case, Dr. Finch is providing an overview of the course. So going into what this course is about and giving them some additional details. If you look over to the right side, we're really trying to deconstruct NECA in this case. So we're creating kind of a minimal minimalistic navigation bar on the side. We're really focusing the attention on the main page. So they know where to go, they know how to navigate through the course. As we scroll down, we've got detailed course instructions. Again, looking at the Quality Matters material, a lot of it is about usability and support, making sure students know where to go, how to navigate, making sure that's clear. Scrolling down the page, modules are chunked into different units. So we're using that unit module topic sort of course structure. And that module granularity is designed to be economical, whether you're delivering this course over a full semester or it's summer six-week term or a J term. The course structure doesn't change. How you schedule the modules for the student changes. So for the example, there might be one module a week delivered for a regular semester. But if we're talking about a J term, then we're compressing that into a few units at a time. So the amount of time on task the student is spending rises considerably, but the course structure itself doesn't have to change to accommodate that. Okay. At the top of the page, we've got a couple sections where we're looking at just guiding the student in terms of the kind of key assets like syllabus and schedule. Everything is very easy for them to find. We've got a section focused on support, trying to do some things specifically for the pilot where we have a discussion board, inviting them to provide feedback, ask questions, and also report problems. We want to create as many opportunities as possible, particularly in the pilot, for students to report on issues that they're having. Again, scrolling down, we've got the modules. Drilling down into one of the modules, again, we're following the same course structure, the same metaphor. For each module, we're providing an introduction, we're providing a video overview. Already talked about some of the services. In this case, we're supporting this with YouTube, but we're using the JW player to provide a few different extra features. So YouTube is great. The institution sorely needs a streaming service. We're looking at Kaltura currently. IT Services is looking to pilot that, but that's not in place yet. So right now, there are a few options available. YouTube is one of them. Although I will say you do have to be careful with what content you put on YouTube. If it's your own, it's okay.
So if you play this, is this basically a talking head? Is that what you teach these modules with?
In this example, yeah. In this example, it's a short introduction. It's Dr. Finch describing what this module is about. And the focus here, in this case, is not specifically on instruction so much as building engagement and building instructor presence. And I'll get into a couple other examples that are a little more content-driven.
With these modules, and they're just sitting out there, so ultimately people picked out modules, so a student could watch the same module 4 times.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, all the information is available. The modules themselves can be time-bound so that they can be sequenced. That's an instructional choice that you can make in terms of if you want them to be able to see everything on day 1, or if you want them to only see things much more incrementally. So those are some of the design decisions that...
Even 4 different classes, someone could pick the same module for...
Oh, are you talking about the reusability?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so for courses where there's overlap, for there are courses where maybe you normally have a section where you might invite this guest speaker to come in and talk, or you might invite, or you might include content that's related to another discipline. That's where you might have that opportunity to take that modular content, incorporate it in your own course. That way, you're not sort of reinventing the wheel. You're leveraging the assets that have already been created. Does that answer your question? And again, course design is very similar at the module level as with the course level. So providing detailed instructions. For accessibility purposes, we're making transcripts available. The video itself will also be closed caption. Debbie, you had a question?
Well, yeah, it's probably not relevant to anyone else, but since I'm in FSB, do I have to make it look like this? Is that what Dr. Spay wants?
You don't have to make it look like this.
Okay.
We're at this point, again, this is a pilot. This is a test. This is something that we're evaluating. And if it's successful, then we'll look at opportunities to roll it out to faculty. But it's certainly something that if you're interested, we want to make available.
You mentioned right when you began this that you said something called Lesson Builder.
Yeah, Lesson Builder.
Is a software.
It's actually a tool within NICA. And I believe that'll probably be covered this afternoon. Yeah, it's a tool within Nika. And in fact, I believe, Artie, when you showed your course page, that was designed in Lesson Builder. So Lesson Builder, that's sort of the I guess the non-CSS enhanced Lesson Builder is what Artie showed you. This has some additional visual sort of embellishment. So all of those are features that are already built into Nika. It's just a matter of adding some additional features. This has a little extra HTML to make everything work.
Are the extra features hard to do?
Not hard to do.
Or in the spectrum of someone who, say, doesn't know what you know? Just hypothetically.
If someone has a basic understanding of a little bit of HTML, they could build this page. And as we look at the opportunity to deploy something like this, we're looking at providing support to make it as easy as possible.
So, all right, so what if you have zero HTML skills?
That's what the consultants are for.
Okay, another good answer.
That's what Lesson Builder's for. Lesson Builder can do it.
Yeah, there's a lot of different strategies to support something like this. For someone who feels comfortable working with Lesson Builder, working within the tool, to the degree that this is something that gets deployed more broadly, we'd be looking at effective ways to support that, so providing appropriate training. But the complexity is really not that high once we kind of boil everything down. Okay, so in addition, keeping with good instructional design, we're including high-level objectives for the modules. At the course level, this is where we're seeing all the different assets for the individual modules. So readings are detailed here. If there were links to additional readings, we might have them available here. Here's an example where we're linking it out to the screencast, so everything is sort of chunked based on the type of information. End-of-module activities, opportunities for students to do reviews, things like quizzes and application assignments. Again, these are all leveraging features that are already built into Nika. Here's an example where we talked a little bit about the video. So here's something that's a little bit more content specific. This example, Dr. Finch is lecturing over a simulation that he's running in the background. So students can, so he has the ability to stage the simulation, which has some advantages. If it's a tool that we can create as a Flash object, it's also something that we could deliver online as an interactive piece. But in this case, we elected to go with the screencast. Here's another form of the screencast where we're looking at, again, sort of that electronic whiteboard. And all we're doing is using Excel in the background. So it's capturing the video while he's talking over the Excel spreadsheet.
So that background is not a movie, that's a stable...
This is actually a movie, but I mean, this is a static image of the movie, but yeah, this is a screen, an example of the screencast.
Okay, so the thing that's behind Brian there is some kind of animated animated graph.
Well, actually, it's just his computer screen. So this is a screen capture. So the camera is taking his image and putting it into the little, So it's capturing his image, and you see that in kind of the lower quadrant there. But what you see in the background is actually his computer screen. So it's merging those two into the screen capture. So anything that you can do on your desktop, you can capture and create something like this. I think I already mentioned a couple tools. Screencast-O-Matic is another tool that's relatively inexpensive, very easy to use. If you're looking for something more powerful, more robust, that works both on a Mac and a PC, Camtasia is an excellent tool. Lots of additional annotation features. Also, and more critically, I think it helps support doing the closed captioning. It actually has those features built in. So an excellent tool to use. I just want to go ahead and show one other video example before I go on.
Could you repeat those? I got Screencast-O-Matic.
Screencast-O-Matic, Camtasia.
Will that be in your notes that you're going to post on Nika?
I will add it to the notes for Nika.
Tomorrow we're going to talk about specific tools, including screencast.
So this is another video that we put together. This is using a little higher production value. At Farmer, we're fortunate enough to have some resources available to put together sort of an ad hoc video studio. This was before a lot of the things that are available right now at the library with the green screen were available. We took advantage of a room that was one of the old econ grad student lounge that wasn't in use and rigged it up as a studio. We were able to set up a green screen. So here's Mark Locker.
Hey, welcome to entrepreneurship. The way of thinking.
And this is just an introduction for the entrepreneurship course. So he's being shot against the green screen. That's allowing us to substitute in this white background with the Miami branding, pull in some graphics.
To be in your shoes, although the shoes look a little bit different because I graduated from Miami way back in the day. You have to look it up to figure out a way. Since then, I've been involved in three things.
So I'll just skip ahead so we can kind of see we're pulling in some different graphics. So he's talking about Miami graduates who've gone on to have some interesting jobs in industry students who are participants in some of the entrepreneurship programs. So if you go out and look at Coursera courses, you look at Udacity courses, you're seeing a lot of stuff that's done on a green screen, a lot of stuff that involves infographics. These are all capabilities that we can support. I'm not going to say that it doesn't take a lot of time to put this stuff together. We were fortunate enough to have access to a fairly well-trained student worker from mass communications. But even with that level of skill, there were still a lot of obstacles to overcome. But it is something that we're looking to explore to support these capabilities.
Funding question about access to all of that?
Sure.
Does it get charged back to the department? Is it absorbed by the university? So if I have a student worker that has video production skills and I need to use them, or I have...
Yeah, right now, that was the advantage of having the level of organization that we had within Farmer. So Dr. Spade was given a budget that we could use to fund a lot of this equipment, to fund the student worker salaries, to make all of this possible. So, so when we get into talking about ELAC and some of the recommendations in terms of divisional self-governments, and it relates back to things I've already talked about in terms of their quality guidelines, generating these quality guidelines within that group. These are all things that the departments can be thinking about, or at the divisional level. But as part of a strategy going forward, that's what's enabling these capabilities. Right now, again, we'll talk about ELAC in a little bit. At the institution level, we're looking at rolling out these capabilities more broadly, so everybody has equal access. But at this point, it's still very much, a rapid prototyping, homegrown effort. So,
Jason, can we transition to talking about ELAC because we don't have a ton
we're
of
running
time.
out of time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I had much of anything else.
So Jason and I were on ELAC, which was a university-wide committee to kind of come up with a strategy for how to move forward. And like I talked about before, the strategy is not, hey, in 1 year we're going to do this, in 5 years we're going to do that, and in 10 years we're going to do that, and these are the steps to go from A to Q. It's more about creating an ecosystem around helping faculty innovate. And so one of the early on things that we came up with, I'm going to go rapid style through this because I know we don't have a ton of time. But one of the key things that we identified was that what we do not want to do here in Miami is create an organization that replaces divisions. So we don't want to create some kind of like oversight entity that that says, hey, this is what you should teach in your class, or this is the curriculum that you should have, or we want to take ownership of these majors, or anything like that. Some institutions have gone that route, and that's not a route that we want to go. What we want to do is keep Miami's focus on faculty and all that sort of thing, and we're afraid that other approach undercuts that. So instead of doing that, what ELAC has recommended, and this is now I think sitting at the board. Is that where?
You may just come to the recommendations.
Yeah, where it's sitting now at is that. That instead of create this entity that oversees e-learning, instead what we want to do is create an entity that enables faculty to move towards e-learning. So what that entity is tentatively named is the ELU for e-learning unit. And what it would do is basically provide a one-stop shop for you to go in and create the kind of assets and resources that Jason's talking about, to have access to instructional designers to help you to figure out how do you do more than just simply what I do in a lecture hall on a screen. How do you actually leverage the technology that's inherent in the screen? It's also intentionally set up to kind of foster innovation and that sort of thing. So, we've talked a lot about these phones. Like Glenn said, I don't actually like to think about these as phones. I like to think about these as like really teeny computers. And as we move forward, it's pretty clear from sales and things like that the future is not desktop and laptops. The future is an ecosystem of these kinds of devices sitting out there. And so what would learning look like if you could have access to your instructor's resources when you're hiking through Houston woods and you're taking a class on trees or whatever? I don't know what that would be. Right? What's that? Botany, sure. Let's use a big word. All right, so that kind of stuff. That kind of thing. How would that transform what we do? And so, kind of that. The idea is that the institution finances this rather than individual divisions. I'm going to keep on clicking. Just talk when you feel like I'm not saying what I'm supposed to say. Then it would provide also one-stop shop for students. We talked about how right now there's all these resources that students can have access to, but they're all spread across, all in all these different places. We want to have a one-stop shop for all that kind of stuff. So we can get 24/7 support for hey, my video's not playing or whatever. Also do kind of assessment. Are you ready to take online classes?
Are you picking up 24/7 for Nika then?
Yeah, I think that's
on the table. Yeah.
About that. Yeah.
Yeah, and and when we're talking about infrastructure, we're talking about student support. We're talking about capabilities for faculty, and these aren't things that are just for online. They're essential for online, but these are things that also help support both the blended and the hybrid phases of the instruction. So these are capabilities that are also impact face to face.
Yeah. And where we really want to think of the online, at least what this ELAC is recommending, that we consider online learning is really just another sphere of space, another sphere where education can occur. So just like we have labs that are tailored to one particular type of instruction, and we have this kind of space for another, and we have studios and lecture halls and that kind of thing, that online is another thing. And so in a sense, online is the plumbing, and we want to be able to make it so that it's another, we're supporting that. We're not going to top down saying it has to be this particular way. Again, there's also going to be in this recommendation some stuff to support and incentivize faculty to start moving online. So course releases, cash, as well as just simply doing things like helping you make it happen. If you're interested and you want to run with the ball, you don't want to go become a videographer just because you want to put together an online course, right? Faculty training and that kind of stuff. And so if you have any feedback on this, and this is like drinking our fire hose, but if you have any feedback on the ELAC, I know that they would love to hear about it. So we're going to put this presentation, if you want to dive a little bit deeper, up on Nika as well. Does that make sense? What questions do you guys have now? Even though are we over time? So no questions. One question. Okay. Does anybody have one question? No pressure.
I have a comment. If you don't make it 24/7 for all of this stuff, the students work on the weekends.
That's why it's baked in. That's why it's baked into the recommendation. So if you think that's important, there's an email address right there to help reinforce it.
Made us stumble a lot.
Yeah, and we think 24/7 support, not just on how do I gain access to my stuff, but how do I, all kinds of, and the library, we've really been looking to the library system for a model for this, because they provide all kinds of 24-hour support, unlike anything else that we've seen in the institution, which is cool. Anything else? All right, Peter, we're done. Oh wait, what's this mean? Peace?
Thank you.
Okay. All right.
Peace, too.
Yeah, peace. We're out. All right. I just put up my presentation for this morning on Nika, as well as some handful of links that I think would be relevant to all the stuff all the software and that kind of stuff that we talked about. And that's it. Oh, and Jim's guidelines, the Ames guidelines are up on Nika as well.
And I'll be posting the presentations as well, and adding the notes about Camtasia and Screencast-O-Matic.